You know, for all the things that happened in this episode, I do have one lingering question. Who the hell puts a self-destruct sequence on a normal elevator? Hello, interwebs, I hope you are all doing well because I am here to review the Season 1 finale of Alien Earth, this episode titled The Real Monsters. Sadly, it's not titled Real Monsters. I would have enjoyed that as a nice little callback to my childhood. But I will say that is a very on-the-nose title for this episode. I mean, the real monsters was the people. It's a bit bonk on the nose. But overall, I will say, despite that being a little bit obvious, I actually really liked this finale. The last two episodes, I'll make no bones about the fact that I think they were probably the weakest of the show and a little bit weaker and kind of dragging down the show. A lot of like stupid decisions and a lot of like balls hanging in the air that I didn't know if the show was all going to be able to catch, and a few things like that. And I am rather shocked that the finale does feel like it managed to land in a really good place for us to keep going into a season 2, and made me feel also at the same time that this was a satisfactory end to what this season was doing. And I wasn't really sure that they were going to pull it off. This is by no means, I think, like a 10 out of 10, amazing, oh my god, this was so cool episode, but it did resolve all of the ongoing relationships and tensions that we've been building towards, as well as I think like setting us up for the future really well and giving us some good, nice action beats and philosophy to munch on here at the end. Again, kind of coming down to the real monsters were the humans all along, not the aliens or our lead, synthetic or not synthetic, hybrid characters. So yeah, a little bit obvious in terms of that stuff, but I do ultimately really like where a lot of it went. So kind of digging into the specifics here, I think the worst part of the episode by a hot mile was Nemec's kind of friend team group that kind of like just wandered around and then got killed at the end of the episode. They were clearly there just to be fucked with the elevator sequence when the hybrids started learning that they were going to fuck with people, and then to finally pay off what that weird plant-looking alien did, which was fun. It was a fun little beat, but ultimately those characters really just felt so superfluous to this. And I'm like, why are we here? Why are we following them? What are we doing in this moment? So I just want to kind of get that out of the way. Like their deaths were fun, but ultimately were just very superfluous to this. I starting off the episode, I really was shocked that Nibs survived. Like, I thought the whole reason that Marcy, I'll just call her Marcy, was upset was because Nibs got killed by her brother. So I was a little bit like, oh, I guess Nibs is still alive. So it kind of overshot the reaction there. And I was like, I don't know if I like that. It doesn't feel like it's a strong enough tension. But I really like that we get the moment with, I forget their name, but the one guy who comes up to Marcy and says, hey, your brother's one of us. Like, forgive him. Like, he thought he was saving his friends. And I thought that was a really sweet moment. And I liked when she had the conversation. We'll get to the stuff surrounding how that conversation happened. But the conversation she ends up having with her brother, which is like, you don't say it's complicated. That's a line that the powerless people say to avoid doing anything. And I loved that line because, hearing over and over again shit recently with like, we can't do anything in Israel-Palestine. We can't help the Palestinians because it's a complicated situation. Therefore, we can't really do anything. I just hear echoes of that in that line, and it rings very, very true of like, oh, it's too complicated, so I can't do anything. It's like, no, you can do something. And I like that Marcy points out, like, I've been treated like I'm being owned and controlled by people, but I am not powerless. And I like her saying that with that line around like it's complicated, because it just relates so much to situations that I've heard around like our government and companies and things saying they can't do anything in the face of literal genocides going on. So that I really liked, that like resolving that tension between her brother by confronting him with that, and then like her saying like, hey, like, you can't lie to me, and you do, and I still like that she's still wrestling with being a kind of not fully an adult, and she kind of points it out numerous times, like, I'm not an adult, I'm still but I'm not really a child, I'm kind of in this in-between place. And I think that that's a metaphor ultimately for like, I'm not human, I'm not synth, I'm something new, but also it's quite literal in the sense that she's growing up, but she's not fully like an adult. And so she's wrestling with this thing of like him saying like, maybe you should just call me it. And he's like, no, I wasn't saying that Nibs wasn't a person, but you were attacking my friend. So it's like, it is like stuff that they need to work through. And she has a little bit of a simplified version of it, but her ultimate point is correct. Of like, you don't get to just like say it's complicated and not actually try to hash it out with me. So I did really like that. Ultimately, I thought the resolution of their relationship was really, really good. And I'm curious to see where it's going to go going forward. Boy Cavalier was kind of interesting this episode. I mean, he's always been vaguely interesting, but he is this throwing that tantrum thing of like, oh man, things are going my way. I'm going to be the little, like, bratty little boy, that all these tech oligarchs kind of end up being when they don't get their things. And a lot of like men empowered end up being when they don't get their way. They act like children. They act like children. They act like small little children who are men. Like, and I like that point, like Wendy throws him at the end. It's like, you were always like a sad, angry man. And yeah, I think that that's very, very true. He never like had this sense of innocence. There is always this self-entitlement, this sense of like, I own everything. I own other people that comes into that. But I was just sort of watching him when he goes to confront the hybrids. And he's just telling this story about like, I killed my dad. And it's a story about like, how I get to kind of choose and do all this stuff. I'm just sort of like, bro, you're telling them a story about they should like kill their parent, and you have positioned yourself as like their parent this whole show. Like someone who's controlling over them. Like, you're basically telling them to murder you. like, do you not think that through at all? Obviously he doesn't. And so like, again, it reads as true. It reads that he would kind of misunderstand the point of his own story that would come across to these kids. But I just was very funny to me. The only thing I was saying is I was just so desperately wishing that he would get eyeballed this whole episode. I just was like, I was watching this with my partner, and I was going eyeball every single time that Boy Cavalier was on screen. So I'm sad that the eyeball ended up in the corpse of Arthur. Interesting choice, but again, I would have liked the catharsis of Boy Cavalier being eyeballed. But considering the show is setting itself up for season 2, I think they want to have Boy Cavalier around as like the devil on the shoulder probably character as the hybrids sort of get more power. And so I think what ultimately probably season 2 is going to be is a lot of like these characters being like the devil on the shoulder. So you would have like Kirsch being like talking one thing, and like all these characters kind of advising the kids or like teasing the kids or messing with the kids while also trying to get one up on them at the same time to escape or get power over them. When the kids sort of listening to each one of them. So I think having Boy Cavalier still in the mix and not be Eyeball Man is interesting. Though I will be curious if we get to have Eyeball talk next season and actually share a perspective, because I think that'll be very, very interesting. I will say the sequence where Nemec was almost, I keep calling him Nemec. I know he's not Nemec. I keep calling him Nemec. Where he almost gets eyeballed himself was really good. There was a good tenseness in there because I'm like, I could see the show offing him like that. Keeping the actor around but having him get eyeballed. But I did find it funny when Marcy kept kicking the eyeball around and like knocking it out like it was a person. It was a little bit comical to me, not in a bad way. I will also say the Xenomorph was pretty cool this episode too. I like that it got a little baby. His little baby is like a little bit of Xenomorph family together at the end there. But I will say the Xenomorph hasn't really been terrifying in this show, and I didn't even really love how like casually it's been shot in the show. I got in the sun last episode. It's like, it's not really scary. They're not really shooting it very interestingly. This episode, they shot it very interestingly numerous times. Like the shot where the people go around the corner and it's like the yellow light on it was really cool. Or even the shot where it's like running through the woods was very good. So like well shot this episode of that Xenomorph. So props to the team. Props to the props team and also the cinematography on that end. I do we get a couple other relationships ending here, like Kirsch and, I'm blanking on his name now, Cyborg Man, essentially getting their fight out, and it's being like, it's a question of will, and Kirsch being like, didn't John Henry, like, die from exhaustion? Like, again, just that, like, their dick measuring contest that these two are basically having. There was a point when the kids showed up and they started tying up Kirsch. I wanted Kirsch to kind of have this moment of, like, what are you doing? They're saying, we're tying you up, and him being like, oh, I'm so proud of you. You're growing up. It's like, oh, you're tying me up and putting me into prison. Like, oh, I'm just so proud you've come so far. It was kind of like the vibe that I got off of him that I really kind of enjoyed. So liked that. bit. Obviously, we'll see more of Kirsch as we go into it. I also liked learning that the synth was that Adam, I think is his name, that the sort of second in command with Boy Cavalier was the synth that Boy Cavalier built to murder his own father. Feels very right to like a guy who just wants to control his own dad, and then Marcy getting control over him. I also like the resolution between Marcy and the girl who keeps choosing, like saying I'm the favorite. I forget her name, but like saying I'm the favorite. I thought that was a good, decent enough resolution. Again, this is what I think this show manages to do decently well, because that was a tension that I think you could have done a lot more with. We kind of got this note of like, oh, Marcy is the favorite under Boy Cavalier. Oh, this other one is now, she's angling to be the favorite, and Boy Cavalier is like having them fight against each other. And I just wish the show had given us more of that dynamic. I think you could have played with that a little bit more than you ultimately did. However, at the end here, getting them all come back together and like all be on the same team, all the hybrids being on the same team, I think that was a decent enough resolution. That's again why I'm like, this finale I think works really well. Like I feel satisfied. I do think the show didn't go far enough with some of its ideas that it was playing with. I think it had a few too many of them. However, this finale at least gets us into a place where like, all right, pretty much all of these things are resolved in a way that feel at least somewhat satisfying. We can move forward in a new status quo and with a new dynamic and kind of explore new ideas while building off the ones that came before. So again, that's kind of what I mean by saying this finale is solid. It manages to catch all the balls. Like it didn't necessarily toss them up all perfectly, but it caught them all, and I think it handled all that well. I don't know. I think there might have been some other things here and there. I mean, we get the resolution with the therapist and Nibs confronting the therapist lady, so that's a decent enough resolution. I like the haunted house sort of stuff, was kind of fun, that we got to see with the kids going on. Yeah, I think that's pretty much the big things. I'm just scrubbing through the episode as I'm talking here. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all of it. This was a solid episode, just to kind of wrap out and kind of reiterate what I just said. Like, solid episode, a really strong finale that kind of does a good job resolving some stuff that wasn't completely set up totally well or fully like explored, but at least manages to bring all the ideas that it was exploring to a good firm conclusion. It has me excited to see where season 2 is going to go, because again, we have the hybrids trying to set off, we have Yutani coming to the island, so clearly there's going to be show off there. Eyeball is still hanging around somewhere, and we're going to have some decent different change in dynamics for the show going forward. So excited to see where this is going to go. This was a strong first season. I ended up really liking it. I probably liked the first half a little bit more and was more excited, and I think the second half dropped the ball a little, but ended on a good note. So that's where we are with Alien Earth, but what did you think of it? I'd love to hear all of your thoughts down below. But beyond all of that, my friends, I hope you live long and prosper. Also, fuck Disney Plus, by the way. Let's just say I won't say how I watched this episode, but fuck Disney Plus and Disney, just generally speaking. Not that I care too much about Jim and Fallon, the show, particularly, but, fuck attacks on free speech and fuck the attacks on trans people. Just gonna say that here. So, yeah, take care, y'all.